Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the Humble Roses podcast. I am your host, Dallas Cash. We have the beautiful godmother, La Madrina. Now, this next gentleman that we have really doesn't need any introduction, but I'm going to take the time to tell you a little bit about the impact that he's made. So in the greater Vancouver metropolitan area, there was a young man who decided to not only start out as doing workshops, lead workshops that were on the topics of anti-bullying, LGBTQ rights, drug awareness, and a high school education with that. He transitioned that into not only theater, but becoming a broadcast journalist into radio production, news, reporting, communications, photography, film, and social media at the BCIT, with doing work with SB Nation's Cage Side Seats, Bloody Elbow, CBS Sports, MMA Mania, the co-host and the executive producer of the Pull No Punches podcast with former UFC fighter, the Raging Cajun Johnson, a man who loves cheese baskets and is the EST of all-you-can-eat sushi. Might be terrible at dancing, but one thing he does love is peanut butter cups. We have Shakiel Mahjouri. How are you doing today?
Oh, you do more research than I do. Thank you. That was the best. that is the best introduction I've ever heard.
Well, again, like I said, this is a huge interview for us.
Thank you.
Because I get to interview somebody who is living my dream right now. So for you to be here, this is equivalent to when you were interviewing Roman, when you were interviewing Walking Weapon Josh Alexander, who actually was your first wrestling interview that I remember looking at, and your first MMA interview with Sid Ogan. And with that, I saw there was a lot of transition with what you were doing. So the greater Vancouver, British Columbia area, you had a lot of different things that you were involved in. But I got to say, some of your memories that you had back in the day, it all started in different locations. And I want to talk about the impact that Park Royal Mall left. Yeah.
This is some Nardwar shit. What is going on right now?
Who happens to be Canadian.
Vancouver, specifically.
Vancouver. Yeah. Yo, so Park Royal. What was your big hangout spot in Park Royal?
Bro, this is crazy. I was not prepared. I mean, I wasn't prepared, period, but I was especially not prepared for this, Dallas. I got to think. You know, I don't think I had one particular. A lot of my memories pertaining to Park Royal are especially like childhood. They used to have the Gator Pit now, which they've since rechristened into something else, but that was sort of like the kids' jungle gym. So I remember some very early birthday parties. I think if I dig around far enough, I can still find like the Macho Man Randy Savage and Hollywood Hulk Hogan and Sting finger puppets that they had in my birthday cake that year. But other than that, you know, we just kind of come and go. Funny enough, one of my best friends, his girlfriend, for her birthday party a couple of years ago, decided to do a let's go back to high school mall party. So we all met up. We went to the food court. We caught a flick after at the movie theater. So a lot of good memories at Park Royal.
A lot of good memories. Not only that, but again, I had hinted that you were a avid lover of peanut butter cups. And not only peanut. Yeah. But the best thing about that is, I mean, I know you like peanut butter cups, but could you tell me about brownies too?
Bro, do we follow each other on Facebook, or is my account just this?
No.
Okay. I gotta go and
well.
some shit.
I told you you weren't going to see it coming. You weren't going to see it coming.
Cybersecurity risk, Dallas. What was that? So that's my buddy Stefan. It's actually been a while since him and I talked. I'm gonna have to actually, you know what? Let me. I have my phone on. I don't know where I gotta take a screenshot. I'll take once the video's up. I'll get a screenshot. This must have been senior year. We must have been at someone's birthday party or some sort of semi-formal function. Yeah, I had the Miz Faux Hawk going. People like, that's when I found out there were still a lot of people in my grade who were pro wrestling fans, because I thought I was like one of the few that hanging on from the Attitude Era, but I had the Faux Hawk rocking, and everyone was comparing me to the Miz. So that's when I knew WWE is still alive and well.
Before I pass it to Nessa, I want to talk about a couple more things before I pass it to her, because we're going to be kind of ping-ponging this. So I know that Disney movies are really important in all of our lives. And not only that, but some things can get blew out of proportion. With that being said, tell me about the Jungle Book. I know it's one of your favorites, but what about the Jungle Book do you love so much?
What do I love about the Jungle Book so much? This actually brings up an even better story that I'll get to. I just think there's something very pure and charming about it. I think I resonate with sort of Mowgli's aloofness. And there's like a purity to it, right? But the memory that really brings up, and I tell the story every time it comes up with my friends. So we were learning about like Indigenous people and First Nations people in the first grade, and the conversation of Pocahontas comes up, and so someone in the class asks, "Hey, can we watch Pocahontas?" And I wish I could show you the photo here that I have, but I go, "Oh, I have Pocahontas at home. I'll bring it." So I come into school the next day, stoked, psyched. I'm like, I'm gonna be the savior. I'm gonna deliver Pocahontas into my classmates' hands. Only when I was like in my mid-20s did I have this epiphany that I did not bring in Disney Pocahontas. I brought in some sort of like secondhand bootleg weird educational Pocahontas with a talking canoe. I don't know what this movie is.
I think I know which one you're talking about too.
I don't know if I can screen share or something right now, but I wish I could. I'll send you a link. You can post it. You can superimpose it on my face here, okay?
No problem. I got you.
I know, and everyone was too kind to tell me anything, but I think I ruined everyone's day.
I think that's a Canadian thing. They were just like too kind to just say, "Hey, this is kind of awkward, but we'll pivot from it." Speaking of pivoting, before I pass it off to my co-host, obviously, with learning about Indigenous people, my great-grandmother was born on an Indian reservation in Caddo, Oklahoma. Choctaw Nation, for those who do follow. It's art. And not only is it art, but sometimes 80 minutes of art makes a big difference. And we sometimes for example, you've always been a guy who has a combat magnum opus and has an understanding of things, because martial arts, there's the art in it. With wrestling, there's art in it. And sometimes we tend to battle with those arts. And I'm leading into this. 80 minutes of art would be a battle of the brush, if I'm not mistaken. This image right here, tell me about it and tell me what the sincerity means to you.
Yeah, well, let me start by, in case anyone's misunderstanding, I did not draw that. I can't draw a circle. I can't draw a stick man. If my memory serves correct, this is actually, you know what? I always complain that like, why are we always just going to the movies or hanging out at someone's house? We should go do some fun shit. I think this was like a wine and battle of the brushes paint night, like you said, where you'd go around and there'd be about 4 different painters working on their art. I think there was probably some sort of theme tied in. It's sort of like a social function, right? You get your wine, you observe the paintings. I'd like to pretend that I'm cultured enough to really tell you what this painting elicits, but all I can really say is it is dope, and it is more talent than I could even fathom putting from my hands to a brush.
Well, at least you got to see it firsthand and be a part of it. So even if you don't add to it, witnessing it is still a part of the experience.
So, seeing your face on the different questions that Dallas has been giving you, how does it feel to be interviewed and not being the one interviewing?
It's trippy, and I gotta say this, I know Dallas reached out through one of the pro wrestling interviews that I did, and this is something that really it was kind of a dry spell on my pro wrestling channel. I'd say from about August until December, I could not get my hands on any WWE talent. And the MMA, they're just, they're kind of shifting their philosophy. The industry is always changing. There's more interest than ever now in the product. It makes it a bit more competitive. Whereas on the MMA side, I'm still getting multiple interviews every week. So it just became a bit easier to focus on the MMA. But candidly, I love the wrestling. I find the talent so much more fascinating to talk to. There's so much more to dig into. Their careers are so much longer. And coming into the Royal Rumble, I was fortunate enough, thanks to 2K, to head out to Indianapolis for that. And it was coming off the Roman Reigns interview. And so my MMA colleagues are all very polite. They're friendly, but I find for the most part, there's not a whole lot of camaraderie. Everyone's just kind of like in their own world, doing their own thing. There isn't a lot of warmth there. And I'm telling you, when I got to Indianapolis and I got to that press junket for the Rumble, everyone from the wrestling bloggers to Chris Van Vliet to O'Shea Jackson Jr. is coming up to talk to me and just to tell me how much they love the Roman interview. And I was blown away by the warmth and the generosity of that, because I just kind of tend to be in my own bubble. I just kind of put my head down and do my thing. I try to a fault. Sometimes I don't really get too invested in what other people are doing, but I think part of that has also been like I haven't received that energy before on the MMA end to really be enthusiastic about it. And so coming out of Indianapolis, I was like, wow, two things. Someone recognized me at the airport, which was the first for me. And I was just like, I need to capitalize on this. I need to make the most of this opportunity, because the last time I kind of let it slide. I'm very happy to say that you're going to be seeing interviews for at least the next month, every week, one if not two. And we're going to try and keep that rolling. So first and foremost, just the warmth has been a real eye-opener this year. So thank you guys for having me.
Oh, we love it. We love it.
Yeah. And I just say, I was talking to my wife about this today, like, I was afforded the same opportunity where I got to talk to the people who I was trying to sort of shape my career after. Luke Thomas, Ariel Helwani, Chris Van Vliet. These are all people who gave me time. Chuck Mindenhall, Brian Campbell, when I was just starting. And so I think the least I could do is do the same for others that was done for me, right?
Yes.
That's amazing. And leading into, how you were talking about your different interviews, what has been your most favorite, or at least your most interesting interview that you've done so far?
Okay, so the one that actually stands out the most to me, just because of its absurdity, would probably be the biggest one. Like the one that has the most views was the first Undertaker interview I did, and I'm very grateful to my colleague Brent Brookhouse, who I was just a few months in at CBS, and he's like, you know what, Shaq can take that one. It was before Taker's Hall of Fame induction, so now he's talking. Now he's telling stories every week on his podcast, but at the time, there were so many questions that people had. There were 4 or 5 decades of stories that he hadn't told, and so that was a really amazing opportunity.
Getting that exclusive stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, someone I grew up idolizing. But the one that always stands out is Malachi Black.
Oh, yeah.
When I first got to CBS, we were doing a lot with AEW at the time, and I don't even know how this came up, but he started to talk about how he grew up in sort of like a cult-like environment. And I'm proud of myself for how I was able to sort of like comfortably guide him through that. But he had a very peculiar childhood, and it didn't sound great. And he says, a lot of those people have sort of redeemed themselves, and they've made significant changes. But the character you see on television seems to be, sourced from like a very real and strange and unusual environment for him growing up. So that's one of those ones where like I wasn't prepared for that. I wasn't expecting that. And he was kind enough to offer up that story, and it was just totally out of left field for me.
With that, I gotta say, I knew that he was I feel like I don't want to go off the rails here with saying this, but it didn't bother me to find out he was a Satanist, which I looked at. I was like, why would he be that? And I realized that their ideology is a lot different than what the average person would think. And it's like, I wasn't one to judge. I was just like, that's interesting. It's not something I would be into, but I'm like, what would make him? And hearing you say that now kind of confirms it's starting to make sense.
He called like, so the quote is Malachi Black details quote disturbing childhood. So if you haven't seen that one, I'd go. That's just the sort of thing you would never even think would come up in a conversation. And he was, very careful and considerate about how he spoke about it. But I just wasn't expecting him to offer that up.
No problem.
So with your interviewing, starting from when you're like your first one to kind of like now, how do you shake off nerves before getting started?
Man, I feel them rarely, but I do feel them. And it tends to be with a more high profile name. Like Roman was one where I was like trying to get my breath under control a little bit, or there's a rare chance if it's someone I really, really look up to. But I'm personally, and to each their own, there's no judgment. I'm not a walk up and ask for a picture and autograph kind of person. It's that just isn't a super valuable memento for me. If anything, I would just love to have a brief conversation. Hopefully they're enthusiastic and I'm enthusiastic. We move on with our day. As an interviewer, I think it's really important for the actual flow of the conversation to remind myself that this is an equal exchange. They are not in a position of grandeur or authority, and I'm not down here. They are giving us content and we are giving them coverage. So as soon as the interview starts, in my mind, we are on equal footing. And I think that helps a lot is shaking off the nerves. Beyond that, I'm definitely a fidgeter. I don't have a fidget toy on hand. I've noticed my lens cap has become a very good source of energy for me. But that would be my biggest thing. I've always approached it once the camera turns on, once we get going, we are equals. And I'd say that generally does the trick for me.
Okay. So in retrospect, do you feel like you got into a point where you ready to interview someone that you look up to specifically?
It's become so hardwired at this point. Like, the Cyril Gann and the Josh Alexander interviews are the first that's on my channels. But that kind of came about because when I started doing stuff for Cage Side, they didn't have a place to host the videos. And so I wanted to do on-camera stuff. That's always sort of been my passion. And so really my whole career from the beginning till now has always been, hey, I will write for you. I just want the video somewhere. Even if you don't care about the video, I just want the video somewhere. And so that's how the Shaq Wrestling channel got started. And then the same thing happened when I came to CBS, where they say, hey, we want you primarily as a writer. There will be on-camera opportunities, but we're not posting your interviews every week. And so part of my agreement with them was, okay, well, I can start an MMA channel. I can post the videos there. But I'd say, like my first, ever since I got into college, I had been doing interviews with musicians or just like putting together local news stories as part of school projects. So I've had a long time to sort of like work through that and figure out my voice and how I'd like to approach things. I have interviewed people I idolize. I mean, coming into this as a big fan of like the MMA beat and watching a lot of people in the media like Luke Thomas, that is the one guy I still listen to on a regular basis in MMA, as well as now Brian through Morning Combat. Ariel Helwani is the journalist in our sport. And so I've had Dave Meltzer I've interviewed. And so pretty early on, I did get to interview a lot of the people who I look up to in a career perspective. Like I said, sometimes if it's a Paul Heyman or if it's a Roman Reigns, I do still kind of need Islam Makhachev. I do kind of need a moment to shake it off. But I've done it. I've talked to all these people. And listen, if I can get them to laugh once in the first like minute, that sets my heart at ease. It's a little rough when you can tell they've been doing a few of these in a row and they're in a bit of a bad mood. So, by the way, shout out to any publicist who will actually warn media ahead of time, hey, so and so is in a bad mood. Because if I know you're in a bad mood, at least I can work extra hard to try and make you laugh. I actually had one of those recently. They're like, hey, tight 10 minutes. They got a big day. They're in a really bad mood. And right when we started, I got him laughing. And afterwards, I texted him like, hey, sorry, I went a couple minutes long. Thanks for not stopping. He's like, you're the only one who got him to smile today. I wasn't going to stop that interview for anything. I'm like, thank you.
You also, I got you to laugh once. So I consider that a win for the show. You made your broadcasting debut, if I'm not mistaken, right after Pena versus Nunes 2. And basically, I could literally see the nerves going through your body. Like it was like a ripple effect.
Was this like the post-fight presser or?
Yes, the post-fight presser.
Yeah.
And
you could hear the shakiness, huh?
I could hear it. Now, 2 questions. One, what was going through your mind the second before you went on the air? And then my second question would be, Amanda Nunes had her last fight in Vancouver, British Columbia. Were you there?
I was there. As a matter of fact. Who was I asking Dana a question?
It was Hakim. I believe Hakim was on there when you were.
Do yes. Yeah, I think
I try to keep up.
Yeah, man, I forgot. Yeah, because he actually used to train with my co-host Kajan Johnson, so we had talked before a few times. I think any new experience is going to be a little intimidating, right? And at least when I'm going into something like a one-on-one interview, particularly like, and you can even tell my demeanor when I do this is different than my demeanor when I'm doing an in-person interview, sitting on a couch or chair with someone. Like I just dropped an interview with the New Day today, and you can see my delivery is different. That was a little difficult, like sitting on the floor, like, but this is my comfort zone, right? I know this microphone. I know these lights. I know everything is set up perfectly. I have a lot of reps in here. So any kind of change in the environment can be a little bit nerve-wracking. You know, I didn't so grateful for 2K for giving me a private space on the red carpet so I could get these longer interviews, but that was also sort of makeshift, and all of the lights that they had set up were on the red carpet. So my shot is dark. If people were sitting far back on the couch, you couldn't see them as well. If they're sitting up close on the couch, you can see them. I bought some new gear to get my microphone working with my camera. So it's a different environment. There's so much going on. There's all these new variables. So anything like that, yeah, sometimes it's a little more challenging in real time, especially when you don't know it's going to feel challenging until you get there, right? If I'm here and I'm about to interview Roman, I already know 10 minutes before I'm starting to feel the nerves, and I have time to sort of work through it. But suddenly you get on a microphone for the first time. My voice, I'll admit this. I still get a bit of a shaky voice when I'm asking Dana White a question at a presser, because I know that my questions might elicit a bit of combativeness from him. And I think I'm prepared to do that dance, but I'm generally a pretty, like, I'm not, I can be a confrontational person, but I don't live my life with confrontational energy. So it kind of takes me a minute to internally work up to fight or flight mode. Like, I'll do it and I have no problem doing it. I've done it a lot, but I don't bite easily. Like, you have to do something that makes me consciously decide that, okay, this is going to be combative. And so part of that process is like a bit of nerves as you start building up. So still, I hate that I do this, but anytime I ask Dana White a question, I start getting a bit nervous because I don't know how he's going to take it. And then I don't know, is that going to create a back and forth? He's loud. He can be kind of a verbose person. So yeah, you know, new environments. Sorry, I ramble. New environments.
We love
a little difficult sometimes, but everything is reps, right? You get more comfortable. You see like Oscar Willis or John Morgan, like they're at those pressers every week. Yeah. They're talking to Dana multiple times a week. That is their comfort zone.
You got into journalism on a whim through theater.
Yeah.
And I got to ask you, what I see.
I need some tips from you later, by the way, because this is good
Dude,
stuff.
I would listen. You are living my dream right now. So there's nothing that I can tell you that you don't already know. I appreciate the compliment, but you got it. I gotta ask you this though. In theater, there's a theater version of Shakiel, and then there's journalist Shakiel. What's the difference between the two?
Ooh, what's the difference between the two? This is a good question. I like this one. What's the biggest difference between? It's a very thought-provoking question, so excuse the silence while I don't really sort of like dig deep and figure it out.
We love that. This is kind of an interview to, like I said, this is a timeline through your life, and this is really a celebration of you. This ain't even an interview.
This is a great day, man. You guys,
it's a great day.
I want to say self-assuredness. Theater was, and I got into theater late. So in Canada, we have grade 8 through grade 12. There's no middle school. It's just 5 years of high school. Yeah. Shout out to Nessa for muting her dog. Let's see you there. I see you. Quick on the draw. Total pro. So I had done some I was on the crew in my freshman year, where I kind of helped put together a little bit of the production behind the scenes, and then I kind of stayed away from theater until senior year. And I had signed up for drama class that year, mostly just so I could slack off. But what happened was, we were at my house for my birthday. It's the first month of the school year, and I had a number of friends who were in theater, and the musical production was going to be Hairspray, which it ended up being a great show. I will say we were probably on the cusp of the last group of students in our school who could do a show like that, because the Black population at my school was 0. I don't know how we did an entire musical. The loose rule was, if you're white, you can't be Black, and if you're anything else, you can be Black or white. No one ever said it. But that, I played a white guy. My Colombian castmate played a Black dude. It was, I don't know how we got away with this. But hey, it is what it is. Different times, I guess.
Speaking of, sorry to cut you off. Speaking of getting away with stuff, I got to ask you a question. And this is a yes or no question. And you got to promise me that you won't smile or laugh when I ask this question.
Oh, I'm bad at that. Okay.
Did you ever slap someone during a social studies project?
Oh, dude, did you find that? It's not a good video. I love that project. Yeah, multiple times. Shout out to Braden Wilkinson. I really need to go and tighten up my Facebook account after this, by the way. So thank you for the realization.
I'm not, like I said, I'm not gonna say nothing.
We watch that video every year. That is every year I gotta tag everyone in it.
It's funny. It's
hey
funny.
man, I mean, that was one of my first video projects, and here we are today. I do this shit every day, basically. Sorry, I'm rambling again about Hairspray.
Go back to it if you want to.
Yeah, we watched the music. So my friends wanted to watch the movie on my birthday. Hey, the musical's coming up. And we watched it, and my best friend and I were saying how funny it would be if we played Edna and Wilbur. Edna is typically, it's a husband and wife. For those who haven't seen it, Edna's traditionally always played by a man in drag. Why is the name of the super famous guy who played it escaping me right now? That's because I haven't had my cup of coffee. John Travolta plays Edna. And Christopher Walken plays the husband. So that got us that got me really excited. And on a whim, I ended up auditioning. I did a lot of, growing up watching WWE all the time. I have my announcer voice down. And so that sort of ended scoring me the role of the television host, Corny Collins. But musical theater was probably the first time I ever felt like I had any direction in high school. And it's weird. And it just came my senior year. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't have anything I was passionate about as a student until that year, to the point where I failed my senior year of math. And my math teacher wrote me a glowing reference letter for college, because he was in charge of set design and he saw how hard I was working when I liked something. But at the time, that was really the only thing. And even then, like, I didn't pursue acting because I was like, I don't think I'm a very good actor, but I really enjoy the showmanship of it. So by grade 12, like, I didn't really, it sounded like I don't amount to anything as strong, but I really had no clue what I could do with my life that I'd be good at and interested in. And that felt like the only thing. Now, I feel like I do a really good job at what I do, but the difference between the journalist now and the theater student then is I think I'm good at a lot of things. In fact, I think this career path is very low on the totem pole of what I'm proud of in my life relative to trying to be a good husband, trying to be a good friend. And I think that's what keeps me grounded, where I have meet a lot of people in this industry who end up being really bitter because they've been told no one too many times, or honestly, I think they just take it a little too seriously. At the end of the day, you're writing about grown men beating each other up for real or for pretend. You can be passionate about it, you can love it. It means a lot to a lot of people, but I don't think it should mean everything. And I think that's the biggest difference.
Final question. Should you stop doing these interviews? Can you just go ahead and pass them on to us? We'll take them off your hands if you don't want to do them no more.
Hey, I just told you this is the year I'm ramping up, but I think there is enough for everyone. I think you guys are actually quite good at what you do. I've done a handful of interviews on this end of it, and the reason I shouldn't do more is because it's so good that it's my job to ask the questions. So I have to answer. I'm never going to stop talking. So I think it's everyone's benefit that I stay on your side of it, Dallas and Nessa.
We love it.
I think you got, any tips you need. I really think you guys should reach out to more blogs, find somewhere that you can write for, and use that as your in. Start reaching out to independent wrestlers because I think you guys are quite good at what you do.
Hey, we appreciate that.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. Obviously, you got a lot of stuff to promote. So if you want to take the time to promote anything or plug anything, go right ahead.
I'll keep it short for once. Shaq Wrestling, SHAK, Shaq MMA. That's where you're going to see all the interviews. There's stuff up every week. I'm trying to think what I can talk about and what I can't talk about. Bianca Belair interview drops next week ahead of the Elimination Chamber. She's awesome. We love Bianca.
Oh my gosh.
They're not done yet, but I have Justin Gaethje and Dan Hooker booked on the MMA end. So hopefully ahead of UFC 313, you'll see those as well. Otherwise, yeah, man, just help me grow those YouTube channels, and thank you both so much for the time.
I would like to actually request something for your wrestling channel. I really want you to get an interview with Michin. I think she's a very underrated talent that I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm actually like wearing her shirt right now up under this. I wear a lot of her stuff. She is a very underrated talent, and I don't think she's getting the love that she properly deserves. I mean, if you get the chance, I would love for you to interview her.
We did one a couple years ago, but I think now is a way better time than then. And she actually did a really great interview recently. I can't remember who it was with.
Speakeasy podcast.
Yeah, where she talked about like not really knowing who her character is. I thought that was really raw, really authentic. I thought that was a side of these performers you don't get to see that much. So good job with them. They did a great job with that interview.
And I feel like you can pull a lot more of that out of her. So that's why I'm if you can, please let her know that the Humble Rose is like, hey, we want to see this because she just really deserves it. She's a very, very talented individual, and I wish the absolute
in this house.
She actually stopped by our first episode. Like she she was in the chat before Nessa, before Angel came in. It was just me doing it on my own. I had no idea what I'm doing. I still don't now. But she came in the chat and she interacted with the chat. I asked her a few questions and she stuck around.
That's why the wrestlers are so. You don't see the MMA fighters do stuff like that very much.
No, you don't. But that's okay because wrestling is for everybody. MMA is for everybody. And we have the pleasure of meeting individuals like yourself who deal with both sides. But we know you come over to the wrestling side more when you want the wholesome authenticity. This has been the Humble Roses podcast. I'm Dallas Cash, the godmother, Vanessa La Madrina, and the EST of All You Can Eat Sushi himself, the Magnum Opus of combat sports, Shaq.
Mr. Shaq.
Mr. Shaq, not to be confused with Shaquille O'Neal.
Nope.
Like, not to be confused with Shaquille O'Neal.
That's an interview I got to get still.
Yeah. It'll happen.
That would be awesome.
We are speaking it into existence for you. It will happen. Ladies
I've
and
been
gentlemen.
told, sorry, I'll end on this. I've been told if I can get to the same city as him, we can do it.
Oh.
So,
okay.
Easily.
This year. We're going to make it happen this year.
Hope so, man. Hope so. This has been a great interview. I have had a blast doing this. Ladies and gentlemen, this interview will be up tomorrow. So it'll be up on the 22nd, probably right around the same time. I got to get ready to make dinner for the kids and the wife. Man, I'm like, my hands are shaking because of, like the nerves are coming out. It's like, you guys don't understand what this guy means to me. So this is my Ariel Helwani. This is my Luke Thomas. This is the Larry King for me. This is Undertaker as far as journalism goes. So, ladies and gentlemen, when you see this interview, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share. Part of Culture Clash Network. We will be talking about Elimination Chamber predictions next week, and we will have some special guests joining us. This has been the Humble Roses podcast. We will see you guys on